Hello, my name is Austin Palucci, and I'm a junior at Highlands High School. And my topic for AP Research is lighting design. So, my presentation will go like this. First, we are going to introduce you guys to the topic, and then I'm going to introduce you to the sources that I researched. Then we're going to talk about the methodology of my research. Then the results. Then we are going to go into the analysis of the results, and then finally we're going to have the conclusion of what this all means. So, lighting design. Personally, I'm very interested in this topic because I have been practicing designing stage lighting since late into my freshman year. And I have quite a bit of experience doing it on the stage, but I was very interested to seeing how lighting design can differ depending on the form of media that it does. So that includes cinematography and any smaller form of media, such as a comedy show. And this eventually led me to the research topic of how can lighting design be implemented into smaller forms of media? So, initially, I thought should it be applied differently than it is currently in theatrics and cinematography? Because currently, in theatrics, we tend to look more towards mood lighting, and in cinematography, they're very more focused on the setting at which the film is taking place. And then, just in general, what other aspects of the piece should be in consideration by the designer, producer, or director for what type of lighting design should be implemented. So, the first thing I would like to talk about are the four controllable qualities of light and the four uses of light. So, the four controllable qualities of light, as you can see right here, are intensity, movement, diffusion, and color. Now, each of these is very important. Intensity, for example, is simply how bright a light can be. That's one controllable quality. The other is movement. So this is how the light is positioned on the object or actor is trying to light. For example, this light here, as you can see, is aimed more towards my back. So, if we get rid of this light, it's highlighting my silhouette a bit more, and it makes a bit more of an ominous feel. Next is diffusion. Diffusion is simply how close of a defined edge the light itself has. And then lastly, we have color. Now color, kind of self-explanatory and longer, but I'll show you some examples, is simply the color of the light. So you see now we have red light, this is a yellow light, we can also get a magenta light, and even a cyan light. So color can also be changed in light, and that is also used to invoke some of the four uses of light. So these uses are visibility, modeling, selective focus, and mood. Now, while each of these are very different than one another, they all still try to achieve the same purpose of making a theatrical piece more engaging, or any form of media. So, visibility is simply how bright someone is. So, if I turn this all the way down, I'm not very visible right now. But if I turn it up, I'm more visible. Modeling is exactly how the object itself is being lit, as opposed to just the position. So, like I said, if you try to highlight more things, this goes hand in hand with movement. Like this is highlighting my back and my hair more. Then we get into selective focus. Selective focus is very important because it is how lighting designers can force their audience to pay attention to certain parts of their piece of media. So for example, one designer might choose to light a certain actor more brightly than another one, so the audience will look at them instead of the other one. And then finally we have mood, and then mood is just trying to reflect the overall tone of the piece. So inherently, this is mainly done by color, but other things can still affect it. But just simply using a redder light gives it more of a creepy, ominous mood, and then using more of a blue light can be a more depressing or just sad topic. So, mood goes hand in hand with two behaviors. Also, in case you did not see this, all the sources that I've been using on every single slide are labeled down in the corner. But learned and innate apprehension. So, innate apprehension. So this is the difference between learned behavior that we learn throughout society, such as red is a scarier color simply because of our associations with blood. And innate comprehension is just the knowledge that when you see it initially, it invokes a fear without you learning it. So that would be our innate fear of the dark. So these go hand in hand with each other when it comes to creating mood, because whenever you create a mood, you are going to be trying to use either an innate behavior or a learned behavior to try to get that. So this also goes hand in hand with sympathesia, which is just how it's a disorder in some people that they're able to correlate senses with each other. So the most common type is actually with numbers and color. So people have associations in their brain that make numbers a specific color whenever they see them. So this just proves how strongly we associate color with different aspects of our life. So the environment. So subtle aesthetic changes need to be made in order to create a more immersive environment. And I do have an example of this in A House of Blue Leaves. The lighting designer was Brian McDevitt. And in A House of Blue Leaves, as you can see, they used multiple lamps on stage in order to get like a light source that actually did appear on stage. This was given more of like a home feeling. And that was just done in order to make the environment more immersive to the audience. Another way that we control the environment is through the use of gobos. So gobos are small circular discs. I have one right here. And they can change the shape of light. So these are some examples of gobos. And these can be used to create just general environments for people, for a setting. So I do have an example. So this light right here. So this light right here, I'm going to turn off this one a bit down more, was made specifically to try to get more of a foliage perspective to the environment. So if you apply this like stage-wide to a production of many different musicals, it would make it feel more immersive because it would be like light coming through a canopy of like a forest. So emulating the different seasons can also greatly impact how one perceives a piece as a whole. Because in general, us as society applies different emotions to different times of the year. So for example, a lot of people do have like a seasonal depression and they associate winter with more depressing feelings. Meanwhile, summer is more invigorating and inspiring, and people tend to have more energy during the summer because of this. So the last thing I want to talk about environment-wise is warm and cool light. So warm and cool light is specifically if the color has a more amber color to it, or if the light is more blue. So right now I'm in a warm light, it is more amber, but I can show you what a cool light would look like right here. So this is more blue and cool. So these are used for two very specific environments. Not only can this help you tell the time of day on stage, but it can also help you with just like different general places, because homes tend to use more warm light when they are just in general with their light bulbs, and then more like open facilities tend to use more cool light just generally. And now I'm going to talk about methodology of my research. So first, I did an analysis of all the aforementioned sources that is used. Then I analyzed the shows that I have personally designed, along with the shows that some of my peers have designed. And then I'm just going to synthesize all my results in order to form a broad conclusion. So, with my results. In general, visibility, that is the easiest use of light to understand, simply because it's just how you can see someone on stage. There are reasons why you might want them to not be visible. For example, if it's during if there's a lot of movement on there and you just kind of want to ignore it and give focus to somewhere else on stage. But in general, it's just best to have all of your actors visible. Selective focus. So this was actually a picture from one of the shows I designed personally, which was the Laramie Project. And with this show, I designed the show while doing the research on this topic. So I applied what I learned into the show. And with this picture specifically, it is a great example of selective focus because, as you can see, some of the areas on stage are more quickly lit, or are more visible because they were having a conversation, and some of the other actors on the stage are at a lower intensity because they were not talking at that moment and they were not the center of the scene. So next, we're going to talk about modeling. This over there is a picture from American Idiot, which was designed by Kevin Adams on Broadway, and it is a great example of modeling, because if you can see there, it is a skyscraper background, and they use gobos in order to make it look like the buildings are actually lit, and that's a great example of not only modeling, because it does change how the object is lit, but also the environment in general, of how lighting can greatly impact how the environment looks. Mood. So, Spring Awakening, which was also designed by Kevin Adams, that picture right there is a great example of mood, because once again, all of the colors and also the positioning of the lights go to create a more ominous feel because they are silhouetted, and yet it's still like this creepier vibe, and that does match a lot of the undertones of the show, as the show does express deeper like themes such as suicide. But like it says up there, mood is just simply the visual representation of the tone of the show. So now we're going to go to my analysis. So, there are 4 controllable qualities, which are intensity, movement and position, diffusion, and color. Simply being aware of this is going to make any person pursuing anything lighting design more aware of what they are doing, since just taking these into account will allow you to create a more immersive environment or a better mood. So with mood and environment, they can both be incorporated in various ways. It can convey emotion and the tone of a piece, or just overall the nature of the piece. So once again, this is another example from a show I designed, and this is definitely a mood picture, as if you can see that is, it's a production of Les Mis. And with this show, the French flag in the background serves as a unifying force, and really does like go with this hopeful tone that this song says, like we have like one day more to add up all of these things. So with the French flag in general, it is combining all of these storylines together, and it creates like this unifying mood. So implementation. A balance definitely needs to be created between both lighting controlling the environment and the mood of a piece. Because without this balance, you are just going to go way off in one direction and completely ignore the other, which is not what you want to do, because it'll get you sidetracked and then you'll not be able to make the piece as good as it can be. So while sometimes having mood with all these crazy colors can definitely tone down the environmental accuracy of the piece, it is important that you have these because it's still important to recognize the tone of the show as a whole. Conclusion. So, overall, it can greatly improve a piece of media with relatively little effort. And while realizing the subtleties of lighting design is key to when creating environments, subtlety can still be removed in the case of mood lighting, because sometimes you do need to make it a bit more obvious for your audience. Most producers and directors should utilize like this greatest potential in order to make the piece of media as good as it can be. And while environment is important, I feel that a lot of producers of media tend to ignore mood in favor of environment. And I feel like that mood is still incredibly important, and it's an important tool for like allowing your audiences to realize the tone of your show. So here are the limitations of my research project overall. I have a lack of evidence and exposure to professional lighting in both cinematography and theatrically, and there really isn't that much sources that are produced on this topic. And while I would have loved to go into more theaters and look at their system, I was not able to I attempted to contact some of these, and they were not very interested in letting me look into their theaters for their lighting capabilities. But I was still able to combat this a bit with one of my sources, which was Starting Your Career on Broadway, which was written by Michael Rea, and that was very useful because it did allow me to get a lot of the stage pictures that I did use in this thing and be able to analyze them. So I think this research provides a gap that was originally there, which is that not many. While there isn't that much information on the topic of lighting design as a whole, there specifically isn't on lesser forms of media and how we can implement it further. So, in the future, I would like to see research being conducted on the combination of both scenic design and lighting design in order to create more full environments. So these are my works cited, and these are my image works cited. Thank you.
Okay, Austin, you mentioned kind of where you would like to go in the future for research. Mm-hmm. What would be a way if you had unlimited resources, access, everything, how would you go about kind of solving that issue?
So I would go about it by interviewing many designers that are currently on Broadway in both scenic and lighting design. And specifically, I know I mentioned him earlier with Spring Awakening and American Idiot, but Kevin Adams, for example, went to school for scenic art, and he actually ended up being a lighting designer. So figuring out, just like getting to the specifics on what he thinks about the topic, along with other scenic and lighting designers on Broadway, would be very interesting and help to fill this gap of how exactly lighting and scenic art can be combined to create a better environment overall.
So it'd be all mostly observation rather than like source study.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.